Awesome, great to see you guys on for the stream. Welcome, shout out all to our oldies and some of our newbies if you're joining on our Revolve stream for the first time. We're really excited. That was a super funny game. Thanks, Lanique, again for playing that. Yeah, make sure, tally up your score if you're on YouTube, you're on the live stream chat right now. Give the score out, and I think there'll be one of our hosts on YouTube right now that'll let you know if you're the winner. And if you're comfortable, you can go onto our Revolve Youth Instagram and send us a direct message with your email, and we'll make sure to send you a $15 gift card of your choice, whatever you want. It's pretty sweet. Anyway, we're here for our second part of our series, What's Wrong With Me? And maybe you've been wondering questions about just mental health in general. We know this last year has been a really hard year for a lot of people and for us, and for students especially too. Online learning and everything has been extremely difficult, and everything has changed so much in our lives. And so this week we have a special guest from Vanguard College here in our city of Edmonton. His name is Dr. Ron Powell. He's the Dean of Online Education at Vanguard College, and he's also one of my old professors, and I'm really excited to be able to have him out here tonight. And so he's going to lead us in the next part of our series, and he's going to introduce it. So why don't you welcome him up right now? Come on up, Dr. Powell. Thanks so much for joining us. And why don't you give him a hand if you're here on our live stream, and let's engage. If you have any questions about the series tonight, write them down. Write them down on a pen, on a piece of paper with a pen. Don't know what I'm saying right now. That's okay. Write it on a piece of paper with a pen. Keep track of a question. If you have any questions, just like about just cycle of addiction, those kinds of things, we're going to have time to ask some questions, Q&A, at the end of our night. And Dr. Powell will answer some of those questions for you. So enjoy, and we hope that this will be a great resource for you and your friends. So make sure to share it up. We'll see you.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me here, Holt and Kate. I got to say, you guys are the quietest, best behaved youth group I have ever seen. Well, actually, I don't see you, so you could pretty much do whatever you want. Yeah, thanks for taking time to tune in right now. You could be watching the Falcon and the Winter Soldier or something else. So I'm really happy that you've tuned in, and hopefully this will be good for some of your friends, so you can just text them now and say, hey, look at the bald guy on this station right now, and do that. Well, we're starting off with everything you need to know about dangerous habits, and actually it's not everything you need to know, so I got to admit that right now we've got like 20-25 minutes, but there'll be time for your questions at the end, so please, if you got questions that I didn't address, make sure that you go there. And I got a confession to make here on Going Public. I do have an addiction. It's kind of an embarrassing obsession. It's Cheese Whiz. I cannot have Cheese Whiz in the house. I cannot purchase Cheese Whiz. One time I got a little bottle, I didn't even tell my wife, and I brought it home, and before she got home from work, I had completed the bottle. My daughter looked at me with the empty Cheese Whiz bottle that I finished in just an afternoon. And all I could think was, Po in Kung Fu Panda, don't tell monkey. So that's, it's like, yeah, I cannot have it in the house. It's just an obsession. So I know Holt's going to run out and get me a bottle right now and just watch me fall off the wagon. So let's start with some true and false questions. Now, you just did a game. This will be a little bit like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the questions, and if you listen carefully to the rest of what I say in the next 20 minutes, you're going to get the answers, but I'm not going to just tell you straight out what the answers were. You'll have to pick it up in the rest of the things that I'm saying. So number one, some addictions are worse than others. True or false? If you're watching with someone, you can tell them your answer. If you want to just write the number 1 down and then the number, then you can do that to see how many you can get right. Some addictions are worse than others. Number 2, addictions take years to develop. Like they start in childhood and they grow throughout your life and they develop. Number 3, teens are less likely to develop addictions than older people. Teens are less likely to develop addictions than older people. Number 4, intelligent, strong-willed, like disciplined people will not get addicted to anything. They will not be addicted. They're strong-willed. They're intelligent. Number 5, psychological addictions are easier to beat than physical addictions. So addictions of the mind, obsessions of the mind are easier to conquer, to beat, to move past than physical ones. Here's one that maybe you've debated with your friends. Legalized marijuana is not addictive. Legalized marijuana is not addictive. Number 7, addictions are about managing pain, not seeking pleasure or happiness. Does that sound like a tricky one? Addictions are more about managing pain, not seeking pleasure or happiness. Well, think of those questions as we go through our material, and if I don't answer it for you, when we have our Q&A at the end, bring that question up and I'll answer it directly for you, because you might miss it in what I'm sharing. I want to talk about habit-forming behavior. It's incredible how quickly habits form. Good habits seem to take forever, like, brushing your teeth or doing your devotions. Bad habits seem to develop quite quickly. If you look at these 2 graphics that I have here, and then I'll get to the middle one at the end, it can start with whatever activity it is. It begins with use. Now, you can see at the side there's some chemical names here. One of the chemicals that affects addiction or habit forming is dopamine. And so basically, it's the same thing with mice or anybody. If it feels good, you're going to keep doing it. And so they can put a little mouse on a drip of something, and if they have to touch it with a paw, depending on how addictive this substance is, they can just be hitting that lever to get more and more of that thing, and they can actually get to a frenzied point depending on what the substance is. But when we use something, it creates a reaction, a positive one or a negative one. Now, if it's a positive one, of course, chemicals are going to be released in our brain that are going to make us want to do this thing again. But it can go from use, like, me eating a little bit of Cheese Whiz on a cracker, that's a good thing. But I can go to abuse where suddenly I've got a mania, I have to have that stuff, I have to keep eating it, and I can't stop. So now I've moved to abuse. And so I'm ODing on Cheese Whiz or chocolate or something else. Not really ODing, but there's a sense that I develop, and that's the next phase here, dependence. It's not like I can just go without this thing now. So maybe you have friends who are smoking, and you've heard people say that giving up cigarettes is almost as difficult as kicking heroin. Because of the drugs and the release of dopamine and other kinds of things, plus you're socialized into it, it becomes very, very hard to kick the habit. And in fact, for people who are really hooked, like some of the people I know, they have a hard time sitting through a church service, going for a long time without having that thing again. And then it can get to a point of escalation. So where someone was having a few cigarettes a day with friends, they're now going to packs. For my cousin, he had a problem with alcohol, and he would find himself in the middle of the woods with a 26-ouncer of vodka, and he would be drinking all alone, and it would be just to stop some of the feelings that he was feeling and to just blot them out completely. Unfortunately, he's still in that condition, and he's somewhere on the streets of Ottawa right now, and we don't know exactly where he is right now. And then there's a sense of when you try to go without these things, at the back of your mind, you keep thinking of, when can I do this again? So that if it's a screen addiction and you need to look at screens, you're thinking about, when is the next time I can look at my phone? When is the next time I can look at my social media? When can I do this again? And the longer that goes and you go without it, the deeper the need for that. One teacher that I know, she explains to her students that it's kind of like when you need to use the washroom. And when you need to use the washroom and you can't, the longer you go, the more desperately you need to go to the washroom. And it turns some people into praying people. Oh God, please help me get to a washroom before, my bladder runs out. So in terms of the cycle, there's also a psychological thing going on. So if you look at the circle in this graphic with me, we have an activity that can be addictive. It gives you a sense of relief or control when you do this thing. Unfortunately, sometimes after we've done this activity, if it's looking at pornography or if it's gambling or some other kinds of thing, we can have a sense of dissatisfaction, shame, and guilt. So you have one emotion that for a short time made you feel good, but when you come to your senses, there's a sense of dissatisfaction, shame, and guilt. And then there's this moral resolve, this sense that I'm not going to do this thing again. No, I'm getting on the straight and narrow. I'm going to be good. I'm going to do the right thing. But then that sense of need to do this thing occurs again. And so whatever that thing is, we find ourselves beginning to think about this thing. It begins to enter our thoughts. If you're sitting in class, you're working a part-time job, you're just in your room, sometimes these things will creep back into your mind again. And so you're thinking about the sense that you're going to give in to this thing. And then, that feeling of needing to use the washroom, the demand for release is there. And so we can maybe even have a sense of anger. Who says this is wrong? I can quit anytime I want, and all those different kind of things. And then we get this kind of a cycle of using this thing, maybe having a compulsion. We can't stop. We feel guilty about it. And then the longer we put it off, the worse we feel. We give in, and then the cycle begins again. And it can be a very, very sad thing. And I know from being in youth ministry, I've helped a number of people who've struggled either with pornography or they've struggled even as a teen with gambling. There was someone on my leadership team who couldn't fall asleep without having a drink. And he just confessed to me one day, I'm on the leadership team. I need to step down. I'm a teenage alcoholic. And so different things can push people in different directions. One of the ways you know that this habit is out of control and it's becoming a compulsion is when you find yourself making excuses. So what are some of the excuses that people make? Well, I hear a lot from people, something like, I was just tired and the opportunity presented itself. Or I hear a lot of people say I can quit anytime I want, and they have another one is like, I'm not hurting anybody. This is something I'm doing on my own. I'm not hurting anybody, and they don't realize that they're hurting themselves. And in fact, normally part of the process is withdrawal. It's normally secret. They're doing it apart from other people. And so they withdraw from other people. COVID is such a dangerous time in that some people are spending scads of time alone with their thoughts, ruminating, and sometimes alone on a screen, maybe in an addictive relationship. I know one girl who started up a relationship with this guy. It became very sexual in terms of their chatting. And then she had to break it off, and it was a very difficult situation she was in. Some people say, I'm going to grow out of this. It's a phase. A lot of teenagers say, it's just a phase I'm going through, and I'm going to grow out of this. That sometimes is a lie because it can get deeper and more involved. Some people give up in despair. I tried quitting. I can't quit. I'm just one of those people who is going to be addicted to this forever. And that's just now part of my story. And I preparing for this, I read some heartbreaking stories. One of a man who left his family, lost his job, and just can't be with other people because he is so addicted at this point of his life. And so, those are some of the excuses and ways that people are feeling about this. But I want to give you some hope. My heart breaks for people who have somehow ended up in these difficult situations. And so if we can just turn to the screen with the scripture verse, I'd like to share this verse with you. Hope was just showing me a sign saying that my fly is down. Actually, no, he's telling me we're running out of time, so I got to pick it up here. So, Jesus cares. There's a verse, and if you have a Bible with you, it's so good to actually open it up, look at it, maybe underline it yourself. It's from 1 Corinthians chapter 6. It's a letter that Paul wrote. And if you can hear it, maybe you could hear him sharing this letter with you. He says, you say I'm allowed anything. So that's 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12 to 13. And he's dealing with one type of compulsive behavior, but it can apply to so many things. You say I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. And even though I'm allowed to do anything, like I'm still going to be saved. And that's what he's saying. I can do these things and still be saved. I must not become a slave to anything. I must not become a slave to anything. You say food was made for the stomach, and the stomach for food. This is true, though someday God will do away with both of them. But you can't say that our bodies were made for sexual immorality. And so that was the compulsion that the people had at that time. They were made for the Lord, and the Lord cares about our bodies. And he cares about what we put into our body. He cares about what we watch, what we get involved with. He cares because, not so much because he's a killjoy and something that gives us pleasure. He wants us to have no pleasure. God's great concern is that we won't be mastered by anything, that we won't become slaves and captives. In fact, when Jesus came to the earth, he stood up one day and he shared what his goal was. And his goal was to bind up the brokenhearted, to set the captives free. And you probably know lots of people who are captive to some kind of compulsion or some kind of habit, and it has a hold on them. And Jesus wants to set them free. And if you have something that's holding you back or holding you down or making you feel ashamed and guilty, causing you to become a slave to something, Jesus has come to set you free. He wants to deliver you from that so you could look him straight in the eye and not feel shame and not feel guilt, and so that you can re-engage with other people and not feel like, oh, somebody's going to find out about some secret thing that we're bearing. Well, let me just give you some hints. I actually got these off of Pastor Holt. Not really. But the first one I'd like to share with you is you need to talk to someone. It could be Pastor Holt. It could be Kate. You need to, if you're trapped in some kind of behavior that is making you feel guilty and shame. And I know at a point in my life when I broke down and I told my older brother about stuff I was dealing with when I was just around 18 years old. And I couldn't even look him in the eye, and I was weeping, and I shared some stuff with him. What a relief I felt. Honestly, I felt like I was born again all over again. And so for you, break the silence, talk to someone if you feel trapped in some kind of behavior. Another thing that you can do after talking to someone, getting things out in the open. Normally, these kind of habits have some kind of a trigger. Maybe we're tired. Maybe we're angry. Maybe we're isolated and alone, and that can be a kind of a trigger. You need to develop a new response. It might be to get up and dance before the Lord. It might be and go out and go for a run. It might be something else that'll get you out of that situation, out of that context, doing something so much more healthy. And so here's a giveaway to one of those questions about some addictions being worse than others. I know some runners who are addicted to running. It's kind of a healthy addiction. They get that high from running. Some have hobbies that they're involved with. Much more positive responses. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit compulsive. Like if they don't do it, they feel awful. But these things are much better. If I go a day and I can't get alone time with God, I'm miserable. I'm addicted to that time with God. I need to have it. Not because I'm spiritual, but because I'm not. If I don't get that time, it's worse than if I haven't had my coffee. I need that time. So yeah, get addicted to something powerful and positive, something good. Practice healthy habits, and they're harder to form, but if you can have healthy habits, routine is a good thing. When you break your routines, they can be bad. Now, we can have bad routines. Some people are ritualistic about their addiction. So break those routines. Set boundaries. Remember me talking about Cheese Whiz? I don't buy it. I don't have it in the house. I don't let anyone else have it in the house. It is not available to me. So things like maybe some kind of screen protection, some kind of accountability on where you can go on your internet is a really good thing. Another good one, don't have your phone in your room when you go to bed. Leave it outside, charge it downstairs. Have a computer in the family room or some part of the house. And then the last thing I want to share with you is be accountable to someone. What I've seen time and time and time again is that people are suffering in silence. They haven't opened up to anyone. They have no one that they could share. I have a good friend. He had a gambling addiction, almost lost his wife, almost lost everything. Every now and then, out of the blue, he just gets in touch with me and he says, Ron, I'm having a hard time. Can you pray for me? And we do that, no judgment. You need a person that you can share that with. Well, I'll just pray like 30 seconds with you, and then we'll go on to the Q&A. Lord, I really pray right now, if anyone is trapped, if anyone is in chains, you have come to set them free. Help them, first of all, to break the silence. Help them to talk to someone. Help them to get help, to make better choices, and to have health and wholeness, freedom, and joy. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Holt?
Thanks so much, Dr. Powell. All right, we have some time for some Q&A. I know some of you are still on there chatting away, and right through mentioned, we've got a platform we're using called Pull Anywhere, and so you can text the number on there. It should be on the screen for you behind me. You can text Limberfish 513. Yes, it's the same one from last week. Limberfish 513, and you text to 37607. So you want to text Limberfish 513, and then you text to it 37607, that number. And when you do that, you can ask your question, and we'll wait for the next couple of minutes. I know some of you probably have some questions already, and so you're sending in your responses right now, so we'll check it out, and then we'll relay them to Dr. Powell, and we'll do some Q&A.
I would do the dance moves, but I don't have any dance moves.
You can also ask any questions on YouTube as well. We'll also see the chat there, so if you feel comfortable to do that, we'll check that out. I'll say one thing, Dr. Powell, I'll have to go home and reevaluate my addiction to Cheese Whiz. Oh, Dr. Powell, they said they want you to do a dab.
Okay, let's see. You're gonna have to, I don't know, what do you do that?
Yes! Amazing.
There, yeah, look like Usain Bolt.
I'm very proud of that. That's awesome. Dr. Powell, if there's anybody that did have any questions and weren't able to get a hold of us tonight, is there a way that they could get in contact with either you or I and we could ask those questions?
I'd be really happy if they just wanted to send me an email, ron.powell@vanguardcollege.com, ron.powell@vanguardcollege.com. That's one way.
Okay.
I do have a website called Youth Ministry Unleashed that they could write into there too.
Okay. You guys have lots of no questions. Well, anyway, you guys, tonight, thanks so much again, Dr. Powell, for coming online with us tonight and for being willing to answer some questions. And if we have some, we'll send them your way. And
Super.
If they have any questions, thanks for wanting to do that.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Awesome, you guys. Thanks so much for coming online. Like I mentioned, the first 10 who are able to join us and comment on our YouTube live chat, you're going to get a $10 gift card to McDonald's. And so I think I've got some of those names down already, and so I'll make sure to send those out today or tomorrow. But look out for that. And send us a direct message with your email so that we can send that gift card to you. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for joining us online this week. We're so excited. We're going to continue on with our series next week. Next week, we're talking about stress and anxiety and worry. And so hopefully you come out for tonight, share with your friends for next week. We're going to do the same time, 7 o'clock next week on the live stream. We're going to have even bigger prizes next week, so stay tuned, and we'll see you next week.